guys, Mike out on the range for Diamondback Shooting Sports again. We're talking a little bit about some of the material that we cover in our handgun level 1 class. And what it's going to be is we're going to focus on how do we present the gun to accurate enough sights. Now, what does accurate enough sights mean? Well, at a given distance, can I hit what I'm aiming at even though my sights are slightly misaligned? So we don't always get the perfect presentation, but when we present the gun to the target, if we have accurate enough sights for the target at whatever distance it's at, we can still shoot. So most of the time we talk about iron sights being, we have our rear sight mounted in the center of the target and our front sight centered in that rear sight, equal height, equal light, looking something like that. If I mount my iron sight in the center of the target, but I find I have my sights slightly misaligned, that might still be accurate enough for the target at that distance. So it does take some experimentation, but what we essentially will be able to do is align our sights and show what exactly that misalignment can produce at a given distance. Now, I'm going to use my blue gun just for some iron sights, and then we're going to go live and we're going to do this with my dot. But when I present the gun to the target, I'm essentially just trying to follow a line to bring the gun up to my eyes. So if I start by building my grip with my sights aligned in the center of the target, equal height, equal light, and then I just escalator the gun back down in front of my chest, all I need to do is repeat that path, find my way to the trigger on the way to the target, and then make a decision based off of those sights if they're accurate enough. So when I come up and I find my sights, even if my front sight, so right now my front sight is slightly high, but my rear sight is bracketing on either side of the dot that I have on the target. Even if I saw that front sight slightly high, I know that I would just be hitting into the higher portion of the A zone in this USPSA target, which would still be more than accurate enough for defensive purposes. So once I get to see my sights and ask myself that question of if they are accurate enough, then I can go through the process of pressing the trigger if it tells me yes. And this again comes back to that idea of that baseball diamond. So when I present to the target, if my sights are nice and aligned, it will look roughly like this. If I push the front sight high, not a huge difference, but now the entire front sight is above the rear sight. This could still get me some accurate enough rounds into the upper A zone. If I push the front sight low, now I'm actually starting to lose the front sight behind the rear sight notch, but I could still reasonably get some shots into the lower A zone. Again, pushing my sight slightly off to the left or slightly off to the right, I should still have accurate enough results on the target. Now with iron sights, again, it looks like that equal height, equal light is what we're looking for. The dot is a little bit different. The dot is essentially, I just put my sights in the center of the target and hope that they land in that center of the target. Now I say hope, there is the built-up index that we work on, but the idea being it should land somewhere inside of that A zone that I'm looking at. And even if when I come up onto sights, I see it slightly outside of that A zone, I can still reasonably, or slightly off of that dot, I can still reasonably get accurate enough shooting. So when I present up with the dot and I find my dot directly on the center of that square in the center of the target, perfect. That's a perfect shot. That's exactly where I want it to be. But now if I shift that front sight slightly high, that dot is now just in the upper A zone. Similarly, if I push it low, it's in the lower A zone, slightly off to the left on the left side of the A zone, slightly off to the right in the right side of the A zone. So any of those will be accurate enough at a given distance. So as long as I've tested that, I've gone through and I've seen what I can get away with at that distance, I can reasonably shoot with less aligned sights. So when we're building up this presentation, we get used to what do I need to see. That's called confirmation levels, which is not really something we get into the handgun 1 class. We talk a lot more about that in the handgun 2 class, but we definitely talk about that idea of what is acceptable sights. So with that, we're going to take a quick pause, put some eyes and ears on, and then we'll do some shooting so I can show you what that looks like. All right, folks, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to the target, align my sights in the center of the target, and then shift the dot around so I can show you what it looks like. We'll go downrange in just a brief second. So aligning my sights in the center of the target, as I bring my finger to the trigger, as long as I don't move the gun around, I can reasonably hit in the center of the target. Pause for reflection because there was a little bit of surprise in the background here. but that's okay.
I'm so sorry. I was so focused on pictures.
All right, so with that, I've got a shot slightly off of the pacer, but regardless, it is right at where I was aiming. So if that is my alignment in the center of the target, now all I need to do is shift that alignment slightly high, send a round up into the net, shift that alignment slightly low, off to the left, and off to the right, and I tend to find accurate enough shooting. Now, with all of that being said, not all of the shots are going to be perfect when we get out there, but it's going to show you exactly what we're talking about with that sights being slightly misaligned. What can we get away with versus what necessarily can't we get away with? All right. So when I broke the first shot, the dot was around here. As I pushed the gun low, I actually was starting to lose a little bit of the dot towards the bottom of the window. I thought it was going to be around here, but it ended up being a little bit more off to the side. The left one was a little bit more inside and the right one farther out. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about defensive accuracy, seeing my sights anywhere inside this zone here is going to be accurate enough for defensive purposes. As long as I am able to stay connected to my sights, look at a small spot, what we should see is that our shots land roughly concentrically around that. And then that idea of that baseball diamond tells us that kind of cause and effect. If my front sight is high, low, left, or right, I'm going to see that result on the target as well. Train, train, train.